Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the noise to bring you the core insights from key sources. Today we're looking at something pretty interesting, how specific government policies and the way a country is seen globally can really hit a huge industry like tourism. We've got reports here mainly from NBC News and Oxford Economics looking at the U.S. tourism scene during the Trump administration. Our goal, to pull out what these sources reported about the economic effects. Okay, let's get into it. So first up, NBC News reported something that, well, it definitely catches your eye. Foreign travel to the U.S. reportedly fell.
Yeah, by 10% since the administration took office, according to that report.
10%, that sounds like quite a drop.
It is. And, what's really striking here is that this wasn't just some abstract number. The sources suggest this decline, this 10%, was already having real measurable effects on the U.S. economy.
Measurable effects.
Exactly. A direct line, basically, from fewer international tourists coming in to actual economic shifts. It wasn't just theoretical.
Right. And then you bring in Oxford Economics, and they put a very specific financial figure on it. They estimated that spending by international visitors in the U.S., well, it would fall by about $8.5 billion just this year.
$8.5 billion. That's a significant chunk of change. It impacts businesses, jobs, the whole chain.
Definitely. So why the drop? What did the sources point to?
Well, the reports connect this downturn pretty clearly to perceptions, global perceptions of the U.S., specifically negative views tied to things like trade disputes and immigration policies that were in the news.
So travelers were actively choosing other places.
That's what the sources suggest.
Yeah.
Travelers were opting for other destinations, is the phrase used. It implies people consider more than just flights and hotels. It's like they're looking at the general vibe, the welcome mat, so to speak.
That makes sense. And wasn't there an even sort of bigger warning sign earlier on? Something about tariffs?
Yes. There was an earlier, pretty grim report mentioned. It forecasted that Trump's tariffs alone, the taxes on imported goods, could potentially lead to massive losses.
Oh, massive.
The figure cited was $90 billion, lost potentially from international tourism boycotts specifically reacting to those tariffs.
90 billion. Wow. So the idea was that these trade policies could spark actual boycotts.
Right. The sources indicate that these tariffs created a perception, perhaps, of the U.S. being less economically open, maybe even leading to some friction with other countries. And that, in turn, seemed to discourage travelers. In some cases, it reportedly led to more organized reactions, like boycotts.
Which would obviously amplify the economic hit way beyond just the trade itself.
Exactly. It shows how, perceived tension on the global stage can filter down to individual choices about where to take a vacation.
Okay, so let's try to wrap our heads around this. What does this all mean for you listening? We've seen reports suggesting a real connection between global feelings, national policies, and the economy. Right down to tourism. We heard about the reported 10% drop in foreign travel from NBC News, and that projected $8.5 billion fall in spending this year from Oxford Economics.
Yeah, directly linked in the reports to those perceptions around trade and immigration.
And then that staggering earlier forecast, potentially $90 billion in losses just from tourism boycotts linked to tariffs.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really brings up an important question for you to think about. How do these global perceptions and national policies, even the ones that don't seem to be about tourism at all, how do they actually ripple outwards? How do they affect different industries, different economic sectors, maybe even in your own community or country?
It's definitely something to chew on. A powerful reminder, really, of how interconnected everything is: policy, perception, economics, travel. We hope this deep dive gives you some food for thought on how these big forces play out, sometimes in ways we don't immediately expect.